evening. I'd like to welcome councillors, officers and members of the public to the meeting of the council. Can I remind you to switch your mobile phones to silent? There are members of the public and press attending this meeting virtually. Can I ask those attending virtually to switch off your microphone to avoid any disruption during the meeting? The meeting is being recorded and will be available in due course on the council's YouTube channel. Reminders for councillors. To ensure that those attending virtually can hear the proceedings and for the recording to capture the entire meeting, please ensure that you wait for the microphone and speak clearly into the microphone. Please remember this is a formal meeting and therefore do not refer to councillors or officers by their first names. When addressing council, please stand if you are able to do so. There is no fire alarm planned, therefore upon hearing a constant two-tone alarm, please leave the building via your nearest marked fire exit and make your way down the stairs to the nearest assembly point, which is the short stay car park. Lifts are not to be used. Please do not take time to pick up personal belongings and leave the building promptly. Thank you. I have a public service.
Yes, Chair, received apologies from councillors Bishop, Bushell, Hunt, Lovering, Whitehead and Turton, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2, to approve as the correct record the minutes of the meetings held on the 28th of February 2025, and 19th of March 2025. Subject to the heading of minute 97 being amended as written. And moved, please. Councillor York, move. And Councillor Morgan, second. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 3, Chair's announcements. I have 2. First of all, there will not be a Chair's forward this year because due to lack of ticket sales, so that's no longer happening. I will be putting on an event at some point, but not sure what it is yet. The second item, which you're probably fed up of hearing about, but box fish training, I have been asked to make you aware that we have 8 councillors with 3 or more courses outstanding. There have been 9 courses sent so far, and they come monthly, which means from 3 to 7 months have passed since some of them did any courses. So please, can you get your box fish courses up to date? They are very useful, just as reminders of what not to click on the internet. Thank you. Item 4, business brought forward by and with the consent of the Chair. I have none. Item 5 applies to any questions submitted by the public and or petitions under Part 4 Council Procedures Rules, paragraphs 8 and 9 of the Constitution. Could I invite Catherine Armitage to come up to the question?
Hi. First of all, this question is directed to Councillor David Clayton, or that's what I was asked to do. But it's a little bit of an oxymoron because I've asked what everyone in the council thinks. So I don't know how that works, Councillor Clayton, because I did the second part of the question is asking, as you know, what about individuals, councillors' thoughts and opinions. So
we can collect those thoughts and opinions afterwards.
Great, thank you. So did you know that the IPCC, which is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, has not declared a climate emergency? Is the IPCC the justification for North Devon District Council declaring a climate emergency? How many NDDC councillors have done the background research into the reasons for declaring a climate emergency, or have you just taken the government line on this?
Well, I thank you for notification of the question. It is true that the IPCC itself has not declared a climate emergency, but it's not its role to do so. Its job is to, and I quote, provide governments at all levels with scientific information that they can then use to develop climate policies. So we wouldn't be expecting the IPCC itself to declare a climate emergency. In other words, the IPCC provides governments, both national and local, such as North Devon Council, the evidence in an unbiased, objective, but comprehensive way in order for them to make decisions. Commenting on recent information produced by the IPCC, has that just gone up? No. The Guardian described its warning, it is the IPCC's warning, as the starkest warning yet of major, inevitable and irreversible climate changes. And it's against such background that many governments at all levels, including North Devon, have declared a climate emergency. Now, if this was a question from the Flat Earth Society, asking why we believed the world was round, it would be frankly laughed at. But it's not, and this is far too serious to be laughed at. One only has to look at the news on a regular basis to realise that we are actually living under a climate emergency. From heat waves to downpours and flooding, we are seeing across the world the results of climate warming. The message is simple and the message is stark. Unless we take major action to limit emissions and deal with the threat of global warming, we are going to suffer dire consequences. I don't know how many North Devon District Councillors have done the background research for declaring the climate emergency. It was declared before I became a councillor here. But I am absolutely confident that all of those here recognise there is a huge problem. And to imply that we've just taken the government line on this, to be honest, is both naive and frankly patronising. It's not us that needs to do more research. If you do not realise what's going on, I suggest it's you that needs to do more research. Look at the news, look what's happening, not just in this country, in North Devon itself, around the world, and it is obvious that we do face a climate emergency. And I make no apologies for this council declaring a climate emergency.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clayton. I think there is still an oxymoron here, because you've got the leader who is speaking on all of your behalf, and I've actually asked who amongst you thinks there is a climate emergency.
Sorry, Ms. Armstrong,
Yeah.
can I say that you are allowed to ask a supplementary question, you're not allowed to debate at the meeting.
I've got a supplementary question, which starts with a quotation from Professor Stephen Schneider, Stanford Professor of Climatology, lead author of many IPCC reports.
Again, I'm going to have to stop you and say, can you ask your supplementary question and not make the
This is part of the question then, because without making a statement, it's not going to be clear what the question is.
it's a statement, it's not a question.
Gosh, it already feels like Daniel being like Daniel in the lion's den here. I mean, you know, it's like,
Sorry, I'm following protocol. That's my job.
yes,
Yeah.
it still feels like Daniel in the lion's den. Right, okay, I will make a statement. I will ask my question. You have made, Councillor Clayton, several statements which I personally do not consider to be true. What you have said to me feels as if it's patronising. There's definitely climate change. I think everyone realises that, and it's been going on for my whole life, and I'm 64. But that doesn't mean to say that we're facing a climate emergency. So my next question, my follow-up question thing is, and you're probably going to think this is patronising as well, do you think you might be dealing with an emperor's new clothes situation where everyone agrees to the same policy without critically thinking as to why are we all being led by the nose ring by the agenda of the Club of Rome, who actually have said that if we scare people enough, and I'll just repeat that, if we scare people enough and create enough emergencies, then basically we can make them dance to their tune, just as they did with COVID-19, which was downgraded as an emergency disease 2 days before the lockdown was declared.
Would you like to answer that? Or would you like to?
But I don't want to sound patronising to you, because this is such a grave issue. And for you to come here and say that you don't think there is an emergency, I will say to you, I think you're wrong. And I hope I'm speaking on behalf of certainly the majority of the councillors here. In fact, there's an article this morning in the Guardian newspaper that says it's about time the 89% stood up and recounted. And the 89% is the 89% of the population who believe that we should be doing more to actually combat climate change and actually accept that we are living under extreme circumstances. And for you to come here and say that you don't believe it's true in the same way you don't believe the COVID stories were true, I think is just absolutely wrong. It's people like you who spread this false narrative that if it starts to develop in social media, we already have one major party in this country, Reform, who wants to get rid of everything that the government is trying to do as far as tackling climate change, and they are wrong. And I think the Conservative leadership that's trying to outdo them on this is wrong as well. And I'm just hopeful that the progressives in this country can show up the lies that people like yourself put forward, and we can actually do something to counter. And it's got to be not just a local thing. That's great. It's not got to be a national thing. This is a supranational emergency that all governments have to come back with. You know, doing it at a local level, incremental steps maybe, but that's the way forward. And yes, I challenge everything that you've put.
I challenge everybody. That anyone is updated by the mainstream media. Thank you.
Can we move on, please? Thank you. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Item 6, to consider motions of which notice has been submitted by members in accordance with Part 4, Council Procedure Rules, paragraph 11 of the Constitution. We have none. Item 7, declarations of interest.
I received none, Chair.
Thank you. Item 8, Chair to advise that any questions to council members submitted under Part 4 Council Procedure Rules, paragraph 10 of the Constitution. We have none. Item 9, to agree the agenda between Part A and Part B, confidential restricted information. We do not using it. So we're happy to continue in Part A. Part A, item 10, the Procurement Act 2023, training members. I'd like to pass over to Simon, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Sorry, is it on? Oh, sorry. Okay. So you will recall at the last full council meeting, you approved an updated version of the council's contract procedure rules in the Constitution. You will recall that this was in light of the Procurement Act 2023 coming into force at the end of February, and I informed you that you could look forward to some trade training. Well, this is that training. So with us today is Justin Bennett, which is a name I will say eventually. He's an assistant director with responsibility for procurement at Devon County Council, and has kindly agreed to deliver training for you this evening. For a bit of background as to why Justin is doing this for us, we've been working in partnership with along with a few other district councils across Devon, with Devon County Council for our procurement service, for almost precisely a year now. This has proved to be very successful to date, with Devon County Council in introducing changes to our procedures, providing advice and guidance, and putting in place template documentation for our officers to use. This partnership approach is particularly helpful in times of change, such as now with the change in procurement law, allowing us to benefit from the comprehensive work that the team at Devon County Council has done to prepare for the new law. I will now pass it to Justin to go through his training on the new law. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the welcome, Simon. It's much appreciated. Thank you, councillors, for some time during your agenda today, and good evening, officers. It's really good to meet you all, and thanks for the invite. I've pledged to keep this overview within approximately 10 minutes or so. I hope that will be convenient for you all. As Simon mentioned, I lead Devon Procurement Services. We've been working very closely with North Devon Council for just over a year, and I'm invited to present a bit of a headline overview of the new Procurement Act, which is now in place. It was introduced in the UK on the 24th of February this year, and I'd just like really to share with you a few pieces by way of headlines, and happy to pick up any questions of course. So the new Procurement Act is categorically acknowledged as the most significant and extensive set of procurement legislation change that has been introduced since the 1973 EU directives. It is a consequence of the UK government's post-Brexit freedoms in terms of being able to set its own legislation on behalf of the UK. Really, I think the main aim of the legislation is perhaps twofold at a headline overview. First, it is to embed in prescriptive legal terms what I would describe as a wide range of very good practices across the procurement discipline. So I think on one level, it is not a huge significant change which requires the complete rewriting of all policies and procedures, because very many of those procedures represented good practice for quite some while, but it's more being sure of our ground in terms of where those individual procedures lie, the new obligations that we have, the timings within the various different elements of the process, and to obviously follow the legislation as laid out. I do have in my hands about 250 pages of detailed legislation, which I'm not going to trouble you here with, of course, but I will try and pick out some of those headlines. I've put a few slides together, which I'm going to endeavour to share now, if I may, and just walk us through. Simon does have a copy of these slides, so they are most readily available to you all, and I'm happy to obviously to run through some of these headlines, which I hope will be informative for you. I think the changes in essence come at, perhaps I would describe, three main stages. There are the planning and preparatory changes, which are things like prioritising early market engagement with suppliers, publishing forward plans of planned procurement activity in advance for both transparency and also to help suppliers' preparedness in order to link with contracting authorities' requirements. There are then, of course, the competitive procedures themselves, the methods and procedures therein, and there's also what I would describe as the post-competitive procedures, which speak to performance appraisals, publication of supplier performance, payment performance, and various transparency notices around how services and contracts are performing. In terms of some of the main headlines to glean from the pretty extensive legislation, as I mentioned, the public procurement, the new Procurement Act is a post-Brexit freedom, which in fact combines multiple regulations into one suite of reference. And the big picture government aims really is around how to use the UK's public procurement regime to support government policy objectives, both national and local, interwoven together. That's probably most readily seen in the recent publication of the UK's new national procurement strategy, which all contracting authorities are encouraged and mandated to be mindful of when running our own local procurement procedures on behalf of each of our own authorities. And really the headlines include an unexpected but also explicit drive towards value for money, economic growth to support social value, to support environmental aims, and all elements really to overall support the achievements and to strive for achievements in relation to the public good. There is an explicit government expectation to be mindful of and to support the UK's strategic priorities in the work that we do on a frontline operational and local level. So some of these priorities in terms of the 1 to 6 here on this slide, achieving innovation, promoting social value, to promote the ease of doing business with small to medium enterprises and voluntary organisations, to consider the removal of barriers to entry up front when planning every procurement process that we run, to encourage suppliers' commitment towards quality jobs, health and safety, working conditions, fair pay, opportunity and progression, and in and amongst all things to have a high transparency focus in terms of what we are looking to do through our contracting programme, what we're looking to achieve. Possibly this slide here puts that in a most visually presentable way, because it is intended to demonstrate how UK government priorities interlink together. We begin with the procurement regulations, which clearly are now legislation, which we follow as public contracting authorities. We have the National Procurement Policy Statement. Some of the headlines from that include encouraging innovation, transparency and performance, creating economic development and quality employment, balance effectiveness, efficiency and economy over the full service life cycle, the entire beginning to end of each contract that's put in place. The National Procurement Policy supports working in partnership across organisational boundaries, and I would say that's both peer-to-peer organisations across the public sector, but also working closely with our suppliers who have a great degree of knowledge in the work that they do. We have the North Devon Council procurement strategy, one of the products of our working together, and that encourages the wheel diagram on the right hand side, which speak to a range of themes which officers are considering in the planned procurements that they run, that they plan in the course of their work. So really, this is intended to be a visual to help me to portray how national government policy and local strategy interweave together through the whole procurement cycle. Two reasonably quick slides, which I'll whip through if I may, which try to headline a number of things about what's new. It's obviously a bit of a task to compare and contrast hundreds of pages of now outgoing legislation as compared with hundreds of pages of incoming legislation. But as I attempt to convey. I think a lot of this is about prescriptively bedding in what is known in industry as good practice themes in any event. We have continued principles of fairness, transparency, non-discrimination, focus on value for money and the public good. The government has launched a new central digital platform, which is one central place for all buyers and suppliers to post notices for transparency on, whether that be new business or performance notices or such like. We have a duty to reduce barriers to entry, particularly for SMEs and small businesses, to link with the public sector, secure good work contracts, and to bring innovation and grow. There is an expectation towards pre-market supplier engagement events to share knowledge, to work transparently and consistently together on a no surprises approach. There are a raft of new procedures now in place. They range from the single stage open procedure with all bidders invited to the full competitive process, through to a portfolio of different procedures which exist within the competitive flexible procedure. There are some examples listed there, and there is of course an ability for direct award in specific, albeit limited cases, and framework contracts comprising multiple suppliers can opt to operate for up to 8 years, so a longer term than had been previous, subject to certain conditions. There is a significant increase in the obligations to publish transparency notices at various stages of the competitive cycle. Our officers work closely together around how, when and where that's best done. There are some updates and changes to supplier debrief protocols in terms of the competitive process. The introduction of a procurement review unit centrally, operating centrally, but with a remit across local government nationally, which again seeks to promote and uphold high standards. And as would be expected, conflict of interest expectations are high on the agenda to ensure the highest standards of operations in public office. Coming towards the end of my note, I do not wish to outstay my time, but there is quite a bit to cover. So I'm just trying to pick my elements, which I trust and hope will be of most interest for you all. A little bit here about North Devon Council preparations and readiness. We have invested significant time, energy, and some finances through external support in updating the procurement documentation that all officers have available to them. It is completely compliant with the new Procurement Act and represents both the legislation practice and also good practice, which I think we would all expect and hope to see. We're investing time in in-person officer training sessions on a variety of themes. Colleagues will know that North Devon's financial regulations have recently been updated in line with the new Act, and we work together on a daily basis for ongoing collaborative support, which places North Devon Council in a good place for both the best practice, value for money, and of course the legislative requirements. Final couple of slides. This speaks a little bit to what we describe as below threshold contracts. So in other words, contracts where there is more, a little bit more license to operate below where the regulations fully apply, which I think is likely to be a lot of the instances of North Devon Council's contract spend, is where there's officers can operate with a bit more margin around not having to apply the full strictures of the rules, but can take interpretations into account. We again will endeavour to consider how barriers to small businesses can be reduced. Contracts of these levels must be a single stage rather than multiple stage endeavours. There is a requirement to publish a below threshold tender notice on the central digital platform, which again our officers work together so to do. And contract details notice, which explains the nature of the contract awarded, must be published by officers within 30 days of contract awards. Finally, to speak around performance measures, the government is very enthusiastic to ensure that contracting authorities post periodic updates around supplier performance, contract performance. The obligations vary according to the scale and extent, i.e. value of the contracts, and there is a high emphasis on, as I say, transparency and the publication of key performance indicators to point towards the achievement of public aims in the contracts formed. So in essence, that's a really rather high level summary within the time available, I trust, of the new Procurement Act. We run probably half-day training with, well, it is half-day training with officers which delve quite deeply into some of these things, and I can only, of course, give a bit of a flavour here, but the half-day training is available for all, and is being very well engaged with, and gives us a good chance to talk procurement, which we're always enthusiastic to do. So I might just leave that there, if I may, and come back to the room. And that is my best endeavour at summarising the biggest legislation change in procurement known history in the space of maybe just a little bit more than 10 minutes.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Knight.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Justin, for that very, well, I'd say overdue, because this might be termed a rhetorical question, but I'm intrigued as to how there was no legislation in place before 21 and the UK lockdown, because we all must have been pretty concerned as to how easy ministers found it to ignore any previous legislation on procurement, etc. The key words, of course, being integrity, fair competition, good practice, all seem to be at when discarded. Are you allowed to answer that one, sir?
I think I must stick to the facts. I think it's important that I do in terms of my industry. The regulations absolutely did exist. The regulations in place at the time were the Public Contract Regulations 2016. They are very thorough. They have since been superseded through, obviously, as we know, the Procurement Act now. There is a carve out in relation to force majeure, and I would say that there are it's that carve out and those safe harbours that I think ministers and others were looking towards in the pandemic response.
Any other questions? Councillor Davis.
Yeah, thank you very much. Does the new legislation allow bodies and local authorities to weight how they wish the outcome to be balanced? For example, taking on board sustainability issues or climate issues. Is there flexibility in the new rules that allow that?
Thank you very much for that question. That in fact speaks to the very heart of the legislation in an affirmative way. The essence of the legislation really is to enable contracting authorities to have the latitude, but also the encouragement to use the leverage of public spend to promote and support wider government objectives above and beyond purely the pursuit of value for money. Indeed, the terminology in terms of contract award used to be known as most economically advantageous tender, which tended towards the phrase economically advantageous and therefore financial sustainability. That was a little bit of a misnomer, because such things could absolutely be taken into account, and I have done so through my entire 20+ year career. However, the legislation now is much more specific, that that contracting authorities are encouraged towards to present the award criteria as most advantageous tender submission, noting the removal of the word economically. And what that does explicitly is it is designed to encourage contracting authorities to take many factors into account according to the aims of the council involved. One of the aspects of the North Devon Council procurement strategy that we have directly includes officers being strongly encouraged to consider a variety of wider factors beyond purely finance. For example, the promotion of environmental benefit, of social value, the importance of supporting wider strategic objectives, local economic development, performance and other things. And so absolutely authorities are encouraged to allocate weightings in in tender evaluation around an array of themes, which do include value for money and finance, of course, but also include much broader objectives as determined by each individual contracting authority. So that's probably a lengthy way of saying yes, absolutely, it is very highly encouraged.
Do we have any other questions? Thank you very much. Most interesting.
I'm very grateful, and thank you for the opportunity. It's great to work with the team.
So we're moving on to item 11, the report of the leader of the council, Councillor Clayton.
Take it as read, please, Chair, and happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions on the leader's report? Question? No. So we know that report. Thank you very much, Councillor Clayton. Item 12, questions by members. None have been received. Item 13, the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, pages 37 to 48 of your pack. John Triggs to report.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Item 13 is the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. You'll recall Dominique coming to full council this time last year in March 24 to give you an update report on the previous UK Shared Prosperity Fund and the Rural England Prosperity Fund. That gave an update report in terms of progress over the 3-year scheme. That scheme ended 24-25, so at the end of March. We were previously allocated 1.2 million for the 3 years, 22-23 to 24-25. Pleased to report that we predominantly spent all of the 1.2 million, and that's all been allocated and spent within North Devon. In a change to the previous 3-year programme, government have announced a 1-year UK Shared Prosperity Fund for 25-26. The allocation's been provided to the Devon and Torbay Combined Authority, and North Devon has been allocated just under 315,000 for 25-26. That allocation is split between capital and revenue, as previously, 63,144 for capital and 251,764 for revenue. The purpose of the report in front of you this evening is to obtain a steer from you and your approval for the continuation of projects for 25-26. The Appendix A in your papers on pages 41 to 47 sets out a number of the projects that we have been running over the previous 3 years. And the theme for 25-26 is to continue a majority of those. There are a couple of new schemes within there, and I'll just run through a couple of them. I'll take the report as read, but you'll see there are 2 capital allocations within the appendix on page 43. You've got the continuation of small grants for the town centre enhancement scheme. This was a grant scheme to businesses to match fund and improve public realm and high street appearances. And the previous scheme was well supported, well subscribed, and it's pleasing to put forward a continuation of that programme for 25-26. Similarly, on capital on page 47, a 15,000 allocation for the continuation of the Heritage Skills project to further develop training over the 3 quarters of 25-26. You'll see a number of revenue-led themes and interventions, continuation of the Clean Maritime and Green Energy Office post through North Devon Plus. You'll recall a presentation from Fiona at the January full council meeting and the work that North Devon Plus have been doing. So this is a continuation of funding to that programme, and similarly a continuation of the Business Boost programme in conjunction with joint funding with Torridge Council. So members, the projects in front of you set out the allocation of the 314,000 over the 25-26 year, and a continuation of projects that have been successful over the previous 3 years. So it's felt that was a good use of the money and allocations for those interventions. So Chair, the recommendations in front of you on page 37, 2.1, that members approve the intervention themes proposed for support as set out in Appendix A as a continuation of projects from the previous plan. Approve the variations of the capital programme 25-26 of £63,144 to be funded by external grants and that funds be released, and the approval of a revenue budget of £251,764 to be funded by external grants. I'm happy to take any questions. The lead member for Regeneration, Councillor Prowse, and obviously yourself as lead member for Resources have been heavily involved in the project and the report. So yourself may want to speak first prior to opening up to council questions.
Councillor Prowse.
John stolen along my thunder because I was going to go through some of those projects. £314,000 is not a lot of money across a whole year, but I wanted to pay credit to your team, John, and to the team in property replace and regeneration that made this money go a really long way. And in particular, I wanted to talk about the Business Boost scheme because they've been able to intervene in a lot of areas that are facing challenge like agriculture and been a great success. In Ilfracombe and in Barton, I think I believe in other towns as well, the enhancement scheme has made a real difference to see semi-derelict, shabby shop fronts done up have been a real boost to the town centres. So I would move the recommendation, Chair. It's proved successful over the last few years. There's a lot of scrutiny that goes in, even though they're not huge amounts of money. So I think members can rest assured on that. And our continued partnership with North Devon Plus means that we can get into more businesses that we could try to do it ourselves directly. So I've made the recommendation and say thank you to the team.
Thank you, Councillor Prowse.
Yeah, I would just like to echo what Councillor Prowse has said. I think I'm very pleased to see that we can continue the schemes that we've been helping with through the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and I'm extremely pleased to see that we've got a small pot of money that will make a big difference. Okay, so we have a mover. Does anybody else have any questions or comments before we move on? Have a seconder, please. Councillor Clayton. All those in favour? Thank you.
Thank you, members.
Item 14 is the Team Devon Joint Committee.
Thank you, Chair. Members, one of the good things to come out of the pandemic was the prominence of Team Devon as a venue to collaborate between all the district councils and the county council, both at chief exec and leader level. And it's been ongoing since 2018, 2019 in its current form on an informal basis. And it's proven to be a very good venue for discussing a whole range of things, not just the pandemic, but more latterly, the arrangements around the County Combined Authority and how we collaborated together on that. The time has now come really to either move forward with Team Devon and formalise those arrangements, or put in place other arrangements sitting below the County Combined Authority. And the idea is that Team Devon will now move forward into a formal joint committee between the County Council, the district councils, borough councils, and also the national park authorities. And it will sit below the County Combined Authority and feed directly into the County Combined Authority. The idea behind it was to try and allay some of the fears that all the districts had with the County Combined Authorities, because if you recall, when it was originally set up, there was very limited representation from districts in a voting capacity. That's now changed, and districts do have voting rights through the 2 elected representatives that we have on the County Combined Authority. But it's still necessary to formalise the arrangements of Team Devon so that it sits below that County Combined Authority. A constitution has been set up or drafted. It's been approved by the County Council and by other districts as well. You'll see in paragraph 4.7 the range of issues that could be reported to Team Devon. And they are very general, admittedly, but there are also safeguards built into it because as reported in 4.9, no decisions could be taken by Team Devon Joint Committee which relate to anything that's the sole preserve of an individual council without the consent of that council. And similarly, Team Devon can't bind authority financially, again, without the consent of that authority. So there are also those safeguards put in place. The recommendations, Chair, are to enter into and accept the Constitution, which is set out in Appendix 1, that the leader be appointed as the representative of Team Devon, and that the deputy leader be the substitute, and also to amend our own Constitution to include the new Constitution of the Joint Committee within the Joint Arrangements section of our document. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Do we have any questions? I have a mover. Councillor Beekman moves. Seconder. Councillor Crabb seconded. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 15, outside bodies report. Are there any updates from members? Are we happy to vote those? Yes. Item 16, league members report from the league member for coastal communities. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. The report is there for you to read.
Does anybody have any questions on Councillor Robinson's report? No, thank you very much. It's a great report as always, Martin. Item 17, half-yearly report of the Chair of the Governance Committee, Councillor Norman.
Yeah, second, right.
Do we have any questions? Thank you very much for that. Item 18, minutes of committees. Are we happy to take these on block? Councillor York.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure members all noticed that the minutes for the licensing committee weren't actually included in the pack. You have received them. If you look in Modern Go, you can see them there as well. Basically, the item is a recommendation. I had it here, right? It's gone now. Yeah, it's 37B. So it's the minutes of the Licensing and Community Safety Committee from the 8th of April. Item recommendation B, that the lead environmental health officer commercial regulation can be instructed to advertise proposals for the amendment of the happy carriage ranks in line with section 63 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976 as per Appendix C and shown on the maps Appendix D of the report. Subject to the replacement of maps number 4 for the taxi rank at Castle Street, Barnstable, and number 19 for the taxi rank at Barton Road, Woolacombe, I'd really appreciate it if members could approve this recommendation tonight because it is a timely one. It's come to us from Devon County Council. It's been through our committee twice. It's been out to consultation twice to the taxi trade, and all the amendments have been approved. So I'd appreciate it if we could move that one tonight. Anyone who needs to see the map can see them in the agenda.
Okay, so we have mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Can we take the rest of the minutes on the roll?
Yes.
We use the same, yeah. Lovely. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 19, exclusion of press, of public and press and restriction of documents. It's recommended that under section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following items that involve the likely disclosure of exempt information is defined in paragraph 7, part 1 of the schedule 12A of the Act. Namely relating to any action be taken in connection with the prevention, investigation or prosecution of a crime. That all documents and reports relating to the item to be confirmed is not for publication. Can I have a mover and second to move into part B? Councillor Norman and Councillor Orange. If further information is requested, sorry. Members of the public and press, if you could leave the meeting temporarily and rejoin for the annual council meeting. Yeah, but can we vote on moving to part B?